I have depression, and that's just how I'm gonna start this video off because I don't really know how to sugarcoat it, and I don't think it's something that should be sugarcoated.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, no, no.
Hello, roses! Today we're gonna talk about depression, but I'm not making this video for people who don't know what depression is or how to identify it. Those videos will come later. I'm making this video for you, the viewer who has depression and doesn't want to accept it. I was like you once. For a really long period of time, I didn't want to believe that I had depression. I was ashamed of it. I was angry about it. And it took a really long time for me to get over that, but it wasn't until I got over it that I was finally able to reach out to people about it. Here's the thing. I think that in the back of my mind, I sort of always knew that I was depressed. I knew that my way of thinking was very different from other people's way of thinking. It was almost like my mind was built in a completely different way. But for years, whenever I heard someone refer to depression as a mental illness, I would get angry about it. And in my head, I would come up with this huge list of arguments as to why it wasn't a mental illness. I hated that term because I didn't want to think that people who had depression were sick. I went through a lot of stuff as a kid, and I constantly found myself getting lost in those situations. I would play them over and over in my head, literally pushing myself to the point of tears. Eventually, though, there were no more tears. It was like there was no more emotion. It was just the situation replaying over and over on a loop. And I would let myself get stuck in that loop. And slowly, I think other people started to pick up on it. But I wouldn't let them help me. And looking back on it now, I think that's because I thought asking for help was the equivalent to admitting I was weak. It wasn't until just after I was 16, when my mother asked me if I was depressed, that I truly let it sink in. But it wasn't because my mother had asked, it was the reason why she had asked. My doctor had voiced concerns to her, and upon hearing that a professional was concerned, I thought, maybe there's something to this after all. But even so, when my mom asked if I was depressed, I still said no. I've been sure of my depression since that day, but looking back, I think I've had my suspicions since I was 15, maybe sooner. But I'm 22 now, and my depression is still going untreated. If depression had a voice, I think it would be saying, "You're not deserving of anybody but me." Because that's kind of how it makes you feel, you know? You drown yourself in these awful thoughts and memories and tell yourself you deserved every little bit of it. And you convince yourself that your friend who just turned down an invitation to hang out doesn't really like you at all, when you know that the reality of it is they were probably just busy. The more I think on it, the more I believe that depression is the thing that makes you feel ashamed to admit that you have depression. I need you to know that you have nothing to be ashamed of. You are not weak. You have every right to be upset about it or angry about it or whatever emotions accepting this may make you feel. But the reality of the situation is depression is a mental illness, and you do not have to do this alone. It's not an easy thing to accept. I get that. I don't think anyone wants to accept depression, whether they have it or they just found out someone they love has it. But you can't get a remedy for an illness that hasn't been diagnosed. Earlier in this video, I said that my depression is still untreated, but that's not entirely true. After I accepted my depression, I was able to start identifying when I was slipping into it, and I was able to find things that would help me push through it. I accepted that I had it, and slowly I stopped feeling ashamed. I stopped fighting with myself to try and make it through alone. I'm able to talk about it now, and it feels like a giant weight has been lifted. And not only that, but I'm finally on a wait list for therapy. It's okay to take baby steps to get the help that you need, and you can do it in whatever order you feel comfortable with. But the first step is always the same. You have to accept it before you can treat it. Roses, there is always someone ready to listen. If no one else, I am. This email is for my YouTube channel, and if you ever need to talk, I'm here. I'm not an expert on mental health. I'm just a girl with a YouTube channel who can only speak from her experiences. But I'm also a girl who's been where you are, and I made this video to tell you all the things that I wish someone had told me. You are loved. You are not alone. You can get through this. But most importantly, above everything else, you are not your depression. You are not your mental illness. For more information on depression and the resources available to help, check out the links in the description below. If you liked this video or if it helped you in any way, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you know someone that this video might help, please don't hesitate to share it with them. That's it for this video, Roses. I'll see you guys sometime next week.